Welcome, everybody. Welcome to my webinar, broadcasting live from Mexico City. Today, again, as an exception, is Friday, October 21st, 2016. My local time is 3 a.m., 24 minutes past the hour, and GMT time is 8 a.m., 24 minutes past the hour. This webinar is taking place 2 days after the original scheduled webinar. Uh, It was a technical issue that didn't allow me to come and broadcast as usual. Here, at times here in Mexico, we have some blackouts of internet because of maintenance, and apparently on Wednesday was one of those days, and I was not able to come and broadcast as usual. But well, I didn't want to close the week without the opportunity to communicate with you my recent and latest insights on how the market's been behaving. And well, again, here is me myself, Alberto Alvarado, and let's start. Quickly, a little bit about me. As you already know, my name is Alberto Alvarado. I'm a trader, been trading since 10 years ago from Mexico City. I have more than 10 years of experience trading the markets. I started my trading my first live account in 2005. I just lost it all after 1 month of trading, and I decided to take serious myself learning on the markets. And after 2 years, I started having the first rewards to my efforts, just to lose it all again in the 2008 crisis. At that point, I had to decide whether to quit or continue my trading career. I decided to continue, but I have to start all over from scratch. So I decided to add some elements when I started from scratch, some emotional, intuitional, creative elements that are pretty much subjective, and I decided to integrate them to my trading, uh, and it ended up working very well for me in the development of my edge. Besides that, I use typical tools like technical analysis, like fundamental analysis. At times when the market conditions justify that, I use what I call fundamental dynamic levels. Not all the time, but when uh, dynamic information, I show it to you webinars. The technical tools that I use are the basic ones, the MACD, stochastics, RSI. I don't believe in custom indicators nor in buying and trading robots because I always sustain the idea that the one who needs to adapt to the trading conditions is the trader and not the tools. So following that logic, what you will see here is completely free, not selling and not indicators, etc., because that would contradict my conception how I understand the markets. Okay, so well, hope you like it and you find it useful. Well, for the ones that haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, I strongly suggest you to do so. Go in YouTube, type IIIVB's Trading Room channel. This will show up and you click subscribe. It's very important that you check out the latest video because I comment there that in the description box of that video, it's a link to my Google Plus account. That it's pretty much like Twitter. There is the communication tool that I've been using since the latest trading combo because at the moment of that time, the trades that we opened went against us. So during from the very beginning of Monday, I started open other trades to compensate that and to hedge the risks, etc. So it's very important that if you follow the trades here, you are aware that there in the Google Plus channel are going to be the updates of the trades that I open that are closed, and only when it justifies a video and an explanatory video audio, I will upload videos because maybe just to update one trade and to upload a video of 30 seconds, maybe it's not practical. So I strongly suggest you to go there to check out in my YouTube channel, my latest video. I explain you the instructions there, how to 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 use the Google Plus thing. And well, as I just said, we're going to review in some minutes how that took place and how that hedging and maneuvering surrounding those initial bad trades that we opened during the latest webinar. And well, it's important. I mean, it's important. Being a trader is being in the moment. It's being able to adapt to new circumstances. And 1 week, only talking 1 week basis, usually is way too much time. So go there if you like the content. And it's not an spamming vehicle, so feel free to do so to keep updated in real time. What we're going to check out today is, well, as you can see, we're going to check out not directly, but the weekly trades that are already closed. That, by the way, I want to, to, if I'm not wrong, the overall result of that combo maneuvering trades was a negative trade. From all the trades, if we sum up the negative and the positive, apparently we end up with one negative trade. Of course, that is outperformed by the previous trades that we opened since I started delivering webinars for binary.com. I believe that we already had like 5 profitable trades already. So we're still in an overall profit in that profitable trades. So, but it's very important again, and I need to stress that out again, that you follow the YouTube channel and you follow my Google Plus account, that is like Twitter, in order for you to try to, if you like the content here, to follow the way how I maneuver around the adversity, around the challenges of trading, because this is what will make you a trader, the way you adapt, because you will have maybe 50–60% of times you will be correct, but in order to get that, you need to have the real-time updates. So again, go subscribe and follow the Google Plus account. But well, what we're going to talk about today is the potential trading opportunities on the pound. In the UK, I would like to comment on some geopolitical things that are happening currently in the world, and how that latest latest drop of 700 pips we had, more than a week ago or something like that, the implications of that, and I believe that we talked about latest webinar about that. So we're going to review how that has evolved and how that is shaping the potential trading opportunities on cable. Okay. So without further ado, let me launch my charts and share them with you. Okay. Do we have sound? Apparently yes. Okay. Thanks, Cherish. Well, here, what I wanted to explain you, what you're seeing here is the cable 2-hour chart. Okay. I've been explaining to other fellow traders that actually this drop of 700 pip that we had from the 126 to below the 1.2 actually was a good thing, because in the current circumstances of uncertainty, the current potential rising, that actually the Brent, the oil prices have been moving upwards, but having this potential OPEC agreement on shortages for oil production that could even make the prices of oil get to 70 or 80 in a very short term, like 6 months, that would put in jeopardy the global worth and threaten to put the worldwide economy in recession. We have a lot of tensions in the Middle East that are where are the most of the producers of oil. We have a lot of problems there happening in Syria. We have a lot of countries entering conflict there. It's an international conflict there. We have a lot of problems in Libya. We have a lot of problems in Yemen. We have political instability in Kuwait. We have a very tough situation in that whole region. We have a lot of tensions between Russia and the United States. We have a lot of problems between Russia and the European Union. So there's a lot of global uncertainty. Apparently, one of those uncertainty global risks that was having the possibility of Donald Trump being elected as a president of the United States already ruled out, apparently. Apparently, there is no way he could win at this moment. But that doesn't mean that if Hillary Clinton wins, it's going to be easy for the markets to try to foresee what is coming for the economy, since apparently we will have a lot of political and civilian resistance on a lot of decisions for the next administration because of the Trump effect. But ruling out that, the most important thing is that apparently this guy won't be elected for the American to be president of the United States. The markets will and have been showing that they received that as a very good, refreshing news, because if we have a lot of uncertainty, as I already explained, the geopolitical and political thing, you appreciate when at least one element is ruled out completely, because it's breathable. It's a very vast environment now to trade, but having that out of the table, it's something that the markets appreciate a lot. Besides, and what I want to focus on is in the UK situation on Brexit, and why this candle apparently is showing us the next movement for the pound related to the recent events there. This is not going to be a technical based or potential, let's going to open three trades. No, and I'm going to explain you why. When this happened to the downside, I was commenting that in that environment that was pretty much the same now. But the problem is at that moment we still had some risks that maybe Trump could find a way to really make it to presidency. It was very hard at that moment, but well, the probabilities were there. So I was saying that amidst this uncertainty, political, geopolitical, economical, fundamental, at least this drop actually was positive because it gave back some certainty to the pound, even if it seems unlikely, because a lot of people would say, how come a 600 pip drop in pound? That's something that's a what is called a black swan event. It's really good for that currency. Well, the thing is, because it dissipated the idea or the question mark of the pound suddenly lost the bullish momentum it had been building after Brexit, after it touched the 128.50 and then the 128, it started selling off again. So the markets started feeling very pressured on the pound because besides the overall risk that I already explained, it was a huge question mark is up to where, up to what price the pound could get. If the 1.2 should be or would be good enough to stop a potential heavy sell-off. So amidst that complete uncertainty, in less than 5 minutes this day, we had a drop from the 126 to the 1.2, and then the market coming back 80% of that movement. Later on, the market tried to 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 retest the bears and the bulls here, and we can see how this floor has been building. This is a 2-hour chart that I consider is the best for intraday information. And as you can see, at least the markets in the 2-hour made it to retest one and two times the zero line in the MACD. So what I am expecting now is that actually the reading that I was doing, that I commented that this should be helpful for the pound to build again a support. Why? Because the size is very so oversold now, the pound. We just got through the first psychological 1.3 level. This drop in the one up to the 1.2 is still inside that support region that I've been commenting in the multi-decade support region. It's way too low, but it's still there. That maybe the market will enter into a range-bound condition in the very long term. But the idea is that there were fears in the market because the Brexit thing has taken a very odd shape now in the UK. And having the opportunity for the pound to get to the 1.2 and do this to stabilize, you can see the market is building like this is like a book trade. I mean, you make a higher high, a higher low, then a higher low, then a higher low. and you're breaking the previous higher highs. So this is like a very solid, structurized way the market is behaving. All the elements and overall this reading that I am doing that this should be good for the pound because it will be if really breaking the 1.3 region because the sell-off after Brexit stabilized at 1.28, then moved to the 128.50, and then stabilized there for pretty much 4 months after Brexit at that region, and it took a lot of time to break that level. And actually, the reasons those levels were broken are not precisely directed related to to Brexit, the negative effects of Brexit, but overall, the overall global risks. And since that was the weakest currency, it was the most sensitive to these changes. That's the reading I am making. Then that means that if it took a lot of effort to break the 1.3, it will take even even at least the same amount of effort to break the 1.2. But the thing is that the lower you get, the tougher it gets to continue selling off because the lower it gets, the cheaper it is. And since the UK is not burning in flames and won't be burning in flames because it's a solid economy, and even though if Brexit effect could be understood as a orthodontics work, that when you have your orthodontics work, you start having your orthodontics work done. The teeth hurt so much that even drinking water hurts. But after some time, those brackets that are put on your teeth start moving the bones, the teeth, and that's what it hurts. But at some time, you pay the price of that pain to fix a long-term problem. This is the same thing in Brexit, at least how I read it. I read that the European leadership of the European Union is hurting the real possibilities of the eurozone to to really come over the problems they're already in economically. So I see Brexit as a solution of that. Will stop belonging to a very conflicted uh, entity, would have a positive outcome for the UK. I've been commenting in the webinars that I am a very long-term bullish on cable. Actually, I believe that cable in a decade will, along with the dollar, will be a reserve currency. Already the pound is a reserve currency, but it was rather preferred to have euros than pound. I believe that Brexit, if it happens, the pound should become and displace the euro as the second worldwide currency for reserve currency. Well, why I'm commenting all this? Because now, and this is something that you're not going to see in the mass media, the risks of having the Brexit not happening are increasing. Why? The first 100 days Miss May of the new Prime Minister of the UK said like 4 or 5 times during her first 100 days, Brexit is Brexit and Brexit is going to happen. 5 or 6 times, at least in major press conferences and so. In the latest month, this woman has said that phrase like 10 times. It's like trying to convince herself that just because she repeats it more and more, actually it will happen. Why I'm telling you this? There are a lot of forces inside the UK willing not uh, trying to avoid Brexit happening. There are a lot of interest built upon and surrounding the euro membership. A lot of people that will lose fortunes having Brexit, and those are the ones lobbying this and putting pressure to avoid Brexit happening. There are, besides people that are not wealthy or rich that they really believe that belonging to the EU it's a better thing. So the lobbying that this group, powerful group, is doing has been finding ways, creative ways, to start pushing maybe the outcome to at least stop it and to delay it as most as they can, or even avoid a full Brexit. Why? Since the Brexit vote happened, there were some gossip in the markets that maybe the real decision for leaving Brexit or not was not a decision that the prime minister could take. Some weeks ago, there was information in the market that they were invoking a law from 1600 or 1600s, something like that year. But the thing is that what maybe will end up sabotaging Brexit is that apparently Scotland is really willing to have a second referendum for independence. And the most likely thing that happens, actually, Scotland would like to get independent from the UK in order to continue belonging to the EU. So now, Miss May has a very tough decision to make, but it's not quite difficult to decide what to do. If you have a referendum asking for something to happen, it's a democratic, non-vinculant instrument to consult people's opinion, but that doesn't has a legal strong obligation to happen. It's just like a poll, an official democratic poll. For a very slight difference, decided to leave the EU. If the consequences of applying that referendum is the complete demand destruction of the UK as we know it, it's a no-brainer that then applying that referendum should become a national security threat. So I strongly believe that the most part of UK citizens, if they were asked if in order to leave the EU they were willing to accept that then Scotland is gone, I'm pretty sure that then the opinion of the UK population will shift. Will be, you know what, we want the UK as it is, and if we have to decide whether to lose the membership of the EU, that it's an external thing, than losing the integrity of the kingdom of the country, I'm very sure that people will then switch the opinion to, you know what, we'd rather continue together than applying that referendum. So that it's, I believe that the risks that Miss May is in a stalemate. For the ones that play chess, a stalemate is that you actually cannot move anything because every movement that now Miss May could do, she cannot move. She cannot really trigger that because if triggering the Article 50 triggers a second referendum in Scotland, that Miss May is saying that that was already decided on the first referendum that Scotland decided to continue belonging to the UK, and that was a done deal. That's not true. You can ask as much as you want referendums to people. So I believe that the internal political pressures for the UK will lead to paralysis, that actually a Brexit won't be able to happen. Because if it happens, the risks of dividing the UK are huge. So what I believe that that the real reasons behind this drop is that not that the UK will end up being trigger Article 50 and then Scotland being independent. But what I believe is that the market really managed to come over from the 1.2 and then doing this is because the price action overall from here, where this chart pattern starts, is switching to a very no-brainer movement to the upside. We're not opening any trades now because I wouldn't like to see a huge drop, a huge gap again in this weekend on pound because it only requires some bad words or a bad word said by the prime minister or somebody in the UK, and then you can have a 300 pip gap on the weekend. So I'd rather wait on Monday to confirm my ideas. But what I believe that everything is aligning to, the market is already realizing that apparently Brexit won't be triggered on March, as Ms. May said, because there are a lot of interests beyond economic interest that would then push to rule out the result of that referendum. They already have the arguments. The arguments of deciding between the internal security, keeping UK together, and choosing between dividing the country or leaving the EU, it's a no-brainer. The decision is we keep together the country. I mean, that the responsible leaders do that. So the problem is going to be the internal political things because it will be very difficult if I mean, I see very difficult that Ms. May triggers Article 50 if that the consequence of that is to have to recognize the independence of Scotland. And in any case that they don't want to recognize that for after a referendum, that could confront and have and imagine just to leave the EU to cause a conflict, even armed conflict inside the UK, is something that they really don't want to have. They don't want to have another Irish, this IRA that they have several years ago. They don't need that. But the problem is that referendum happens, I can assure you that it will win 80% to leave the UK and stay EU. And if Ms. May, just to have Brexit done, she does it and ignores the power of a referendum in Scotland that could have these political consequences. It could have a domestic, even violent conflict there. So that is why I believe that the risks of having the Brexit not happening are rising and rising. And what is telling me that is that Ms. May has repeated this Brexit is Brexit thing 10 times in the latest month. That it's more than how many times she said that during the first 100 days. So that is telling me that she's trying to it's like a self-assuring thing. She's betting on just because I am repeating it, it will happen. And this, for me, is the symptom that she is actually seeing that maybe it won't politically and for the viability for the UK in the future. I mean, it simply doesn't work that you just for leaving the EU membership, you divide your country and you lose Scotland. Or if you don't lose it, you put an internal multi-decade potential future conflict, even armed conflict in the UK. They simply don't need that. This 600 pip drop was very mysterious. This had no reason to happen. What I can tell you is that not even the only reason for this kind of drop to happen is to have a black swan event like Brexit or like the Bank of Switzerland not defending the 1.2 anymore level against the euro, and then boom, the euro Swiss franc crashed more than 1,000 pips in seconds. Actually, there were no trading here. It was like if suddenly here was the latest quote, and then suddenly it was here. There was really nothing here happening. It was like if that black swan event happened. So my idea is that this had to do with the domestic politics in the UK. And what is the best way to end a bearish movement? To have another extension at the very ending of that movement to the downside. That's what is called the bullish capitulation. Why? Because here, even the most bullish maybe were triggered out their trades because of this. I mean, for if you have a 600 pip drop, most spot of trades to the upside were closed here, so they were flushed. So at this moment, there were only bears remaining, theoretically, okay, because the market dynamics are way more complex. But to just explain my point, what it did after and the consolidation after is telling me that, and again, the price action after this point is telling me a strong solidity to the upside. A solidity that didn't happen after Brexit at the 128 levels that we actually we opened profitable trades there in during the webinars that are there if you want to check them out in the recordings. Uh, we anticipated correctly some trades there, and but not even then the solidity of the price action to the upside that I'm seeing here. I mean, to see that solidity, you need to go to the lower time frames, like 5 minutes, like 2 minutes. But this is a very serious thing, and you should expect that. The logic tells you that if you have this, then you should continue seeing a sell-off. And now we're seeing a complete switch of sentiment. And if you align that, having Trump risk aside, that's not relevant for the UK, but well, it's one risk list, one risk less. But then we're still having the potential rising of oil prices and the overall geopolitical stability. And seeing this price action, the only way to explain it is that something inside the UK is changing. And maybe I am wrong because I'm not a native of the UK. I have no idea how the law works. I only know what some articles say about the matter, etc. But if I am not wrong, there are increasing risks of having the Brexit ruled out. Why? There is no strong obligation for any government to obey a referendum. It's a political instrument that would put the democracy in the UK in maybe some kind of challenge because they wouldn't call themselves democratic if they don't obey a referendum. But I would like to ask any country to put in referendum if you want to pay taxes. I can assure you that the result of that referendum is we don't pay taxes. And not because of that, not even if that's in a referendum, a government will accept such terms. It's the same here. Brexit is a viable option as long as it doesn't divide the country. But if Scotland really has legal instruments to demand their independence from the UK, and they really move forward that, there are only two outcomes of that. The no-brainer outcome is that they will vote for independence. But the problem is, will the UK accept it, or are they willing to use the military force to stick and to push the Scotlands to stay inside the UK? So then you are transforming a political conflict, a external conflict of a membership of a supranational entity into a domestic lethal conflict in Scotland. The UK doesn't want to see an army like the Irish army, but now in Scotland. They don't want to. They don't want to have that. So that's why I feel that Miss May is getting nervous. Is trying to show that actually she can make it. But I think that they won't. The problem is you wouldn't understand. I mean, Cameron stayed aside because he said, I won't be part of this and I cannot help this to happen. So we need to have a Brexit administration. But then imagine politically being pushed Brexit not to happen. Then this administration will be not legit anymore. So here we have a political Anaheim, but a potential political stability in the UK because of Brexit. Because sometimes politicians, just because they want to grip on power, they are very willing to do whatever it takes to grip on power. The question is, will the prudence in Miss May would be the same as Cameron's, saying, "Okay, I lost, I leave"? Would this woman have the same decency to say, "Okay, in order for the best interest of the UK, we need to stay inside, and then I leave again and we call to elections"? Or is she willing to push Brexit just in order not to quit and to lose the grip on power, and even if that threatens the integrity of the UK? I believe that the UK is a mature democracy, and if I am not wrong, you being aware that I'm being a strong sustainer of Brexit, I still believe that the best thing is to leave an entity that is so ambivalent on how to apply the internal laws, and we saw that how they managed the Brexit to keep Greece at whatever the price it was, how the EU has become an extension of Angela Merkel, and how Angela Merkel has imposed her will on the complete EU. I've been sustaining the idea of a Brexit is a good thing for the UK, but for the long term. But by no means I believe that Scotland leaving the UK will be something good at any time. Even if I am believing that Brexit is the best for the next years, 20 years, the UK will manage to outperform the EU. But this is how the current wave and the current events are happening. If you go to the news and analyze all this and then try to explain this gap, yes, this makes sense then. The latest bears were here, and suddenly the sentiment is changing. And the only reason to change the sentiment is domestically. And it's not coincidence that while you having this, that maybe could enhance the mentality of Brexit is more than around the corner. Actually, after having this, that could reflect that Brexit is going to happen. You are seeing Ms. May trying to self-assure that Brexit is Brexit and Brexit will happen no matter what. Makes sense, right? Maybe we are seeing the first signals through the markets. I've been saying that the markets is the best voting machine ever. Through the markets, you can anticipate a lot of political events. Maybe this is a very risky call, and that is why we're not opening trades this weekend. But the solidity of this latest price action in the 2-hour chart in the pound is telling me that maybe we're just about to see the first signals that Brexit won't happen. And if that happens, just the slightest possibility of that would make this thing jump from the 1.2 that is now to the 1.3 immediately. But the things I would rather skip that to see how we open on Monday to start considering opening a trade here. So again, be very aware of my personal communication channels in the YouTube and Google Plus, because if I find possible interesting insights on cable trades, I will share them there, because maybe on Wednesday the trades would be already too late to jump on them. Okay, so well, this was a very different webinar, because I believe that at least for binary.com is the first time I switched completely the style of this. But this is something that we as traders, we need to understand overall, the ones that are starting their trading careers. Being a trader is being aware of the most of the things that you can in the world. Explaining a trade strategically. I've been saying that in order to open a trade, to open at binary.com, to open, okay, I'm going to open a put trade, a call trade, etc. You need to have a strategic justification to that. And strategic means that you see the overall board. And to see those very subtle, strange thing that happens. Well, this drop has nothing of subtle. But the thing is that the markets got surprised. They commented that like some hours, and they just forgot about that. And I mean, this is like a Scarface in the pound. So this has a lot of meaning. But the problem is that not everybody has information to understand this movement. But if you work like inspector, and you gather all the clues as a trader, because becoming a trader is also like being a detective, you know. You start grabbing the evidence and trying to 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 join the dots to see the picture. Everything, at least for me, is starting to have sense. This drop was the latest bears throwing and shorting this, in my opinion. Because of the potential rising of oil prices, we can see clearly the consequences were in the euro dollar. As I commented, the breakout that we started happening, I'm going to show you that just to close the webinar. And this is the daily chart. At the moment, I was commenting that while the price was here, I was expecting a bearish movement. It's recorded. You can go back and check it out. I was expecting the price to move to the 109 or even lower. I don't believe that the price of euro now is justifiable. The euro economy is so weak now, and having the oil prices moving up, it's something that will have tremendous consequences in euro mainland economy. So it's interesting to see how the movement of the euro has been doing lately, while the pound in even worse conditions after becoming a 600 pip drop. Actually, it is moving in a way that it's showing you that something is happening, that is not responding to the fundamental things like the oil prices. So something much more important should be moving the markets in the pound now, much more important than the oil prices. And since the oil prices are moving the whole worldwide economy, the only explanation is surrounding Brexit, in my speculation. The euro and this movement, latest movement in euro to the downside, and it's not corresponding the pound after that 600 pip drop that should have triggered all the alarms of sell pounds and no matter what, is telling me the Brexit is pretty much, I can tell you, this is my feeling, that now Brexit has the possibilities of not having Brexit now, for me, are between 35 and 45%. And that's huge. Let's see what happens. We need to see how the oil prices end up hitting the worldwide economy, and if the OPEC really agrees on a shortages of production there, if the United States really decides to hike the rates or not because of these oil prices increase or not, how the elections take place in the United States. Because the problem with the UK is that actually the UK relies a lot on the US. And Hillary Clinton is not somebody that is supportive on Brexit because of their United States strategic interests. So maybe what I believe that this is timed is that maybe in a potential Donald Trump election would have received tremendous support to the UK, to this administration, to have Brexit happening. But it will become very hard the more time it gets. The problem is this: the more time it gets, it passes, the way tougher to apply Brexit will be. Because the more time it passes, the conservative forces that don't want Brexit to happen are having way more time to get organized and to stop a potential Brexit. Brexit cannot be taken fast because they want to have the best deal for the UK. But the more time it passes, the less likely it is. That is why we're having this now. The more time it is evident that, yeah, the UK will have to pay the orthodontic pain price of having an orthodontics job done, it will hurt a lot for some time, the less the people is really willing maybe to accept a Brexit. I can even believe that even people that voted for Brexit now are starting to have some second thoughts because they are seeing that potentially they are facing internal problems on Scotland because of that. We will see on Monday how we open. I wouldn't be surprised to have a gap to the downside, up to the 1.2 in cable. But for me, that would be a very clear signal to the upside. But again, be aware of my personal communication channels. I will let you know if something happens. If I decide to open a trade in binary.com, I will let you know there. And I believe that I overextended myself. But you know what? The beautiful thing about the markets is that you can talk, the markets are related to everything. And this is the first time I open myself, maybe opening with no boundaries on how to relate to trade the geopolitical and political events, domestic and foreign, into trading. But this is the best fingerprint. When you have something that is very, very eye-catching like that 600 drop in pound, that should mean something. And all the mass media is just missing that because there is no explanation, at least no explanation that they want to share with you. But now I believe that gradually it's more and more evident that maybe Brexit won't happen because the price will be, it was supposed, the Brexit to happen because the price of belonging to the EU was too high. But there is no higher price to pay than to have Scotland leaving. There is no comparison in the price share of that happening. It's huge. That loss of losing Scotland is it's unmeasurable compared to even leaving or staying inside the EU. Let's see what happens. I would like to thank everybody for being in this recorded webinar because this didn't happen the time it was supposed to happen. Again, be aware of my personal communication channels for this weekend, for Monday. And if my internet service provider wants it, I will be next Wednesday here, as always, at the same time and same place. I would like to thank Shadis for hosting and all of you for listening. Remember to trade safe, be safe. This was Alberto Alvarado, and bye-bye.